called Skywave Propogation, 1977. The first time the static came into my brain, I thought it was the radio. I was 10 years old and it was almost summer 1977. Mom and I lived in a trailer nestled among the Florida pines and palmetto, and the only air conditioning was in her bedroom, not mine. At night, I'd crank my roll-out window open as wide as it would go, but the air was thick and still. So I lay awake, sweating in my short pant pajamas, listening to the crack buzz pop of my transistor radio through its wobbly old antenna. I'd just learned about skywave propagation from Michael's Encyclopedia Britannica, about how the Earth's atmosphere bent itself over after dark, reflecting the radio waves farther and farther, which explained why I could get such faraway stations on the AM dial, but only late at night. That's what I was thinking about. The erratic thrum, the rhythmic er-wersh, ricocheted through my skull. An invisible force took hold of me, and without a whoosh or a gasp, its chaos expelled me. I rose beyond the physical hold of my bones. I tried to open my eyes. My voice clenched and froze. The world moved without moving. I was in a time bubble of unknowing. Impossible to discern an instant from a year from a lifetime. I was a child, but I wasn't a child, a girl and not a girl, afraid yet braver than brave. Over the course of my life, I've come to know this sensation so intimately that I think of it as the sinew of my soul. Always there, under the surface of skin and bone, it connects me to the part of myself I cannot see or understand. But that first time was pure sensation. In a blink, or 5,000 eternities, the static was gone, the hum dimmed to nothing, and I drifted up to the ceiling. A calming vibration lulled me up, farther away from my body. I floated in comfort and bliss, as the vibration rocked me gently, this way and that. Was I lost or found? Was it God? Was I dying? I thought those things, I'm sure I did, but whether it was then or now or some glimmer of twin infinities in between, I don't know. There is no logic inside pure chaos, no reason inside infinite peace. When I returned to myself, when my eyes opened, I lay rigid in my twin bed. Bright moonlight filtered through the pine trees out my window, and I had not moved. I'd flown all the way to that bright shining moon, yet I knew my slight tomboy frame had not budged. I was determined not to tell anyone. Whatever it was that stole me away from my body claimed me total and complete, and I vowed to protect it, love it, keep it my secret. some mechanical thing that made assembly lines go faster in the early 60s. It was hard to imagine him ever working in an office. He had a way of fully occupying every space he stood in, even the wide tangle of his 20-acre plot. Eddie had a deep voice and a meaty chest and shoulders. His skin was rough as tree bark, and he wore Western-cut shirts with curly snaps. He smoked non-stop, so his teeth were a sickening yellow-gray, but when he smiled, it was like a light switch turning on. I loved Eddie Underwood as if he were my own grandfather, and I often thought of him that way. It's possible, actually, that if I hadn't loved Eddie so much, I never would have become friends with Michael. I liked adults more than kids, and I could have ignored Michael easily enough if I hadn't wanted to spend so much time around Eddie. But Michael and I did turn out to have a lot in common. We were both smart kids, even though we liked different subjects. While I was busy with bugs and planets and numbers, Michael read books on Greek mythology and world history. He memorized the names of all the countries in Africa when he was 8. He played the saxophone, but he wasn't very strong, and he was scared to death of spiders. My mom called him a delicate boy. Sometimes I wished he could pitch a softball better since there was no one else to play with, but we all had our limitations. When I was 10, Michael and I were still riding the school bus 20 minutes each way, to and from Dade City Elementary. I was in 5th grade and Michael was in 7th. They didn't have middle schools back then. It was Michael's last year before making the jump to Zephyr Hills High. We didn't live in Dade City, and we didn't live in Zephyr Hills. We were in what Eddie called unincorporated Pasco County. Mom called it the Boonies. Whatever name you had for it, there weren't any schools nearby, so the bus was the only option. A few days after the static came to me that first time, Michael and I were walking home from the bus stop, and my head was full of distraction. I wondered if the static would ever come again. It was such a strange, tickly feeling to have inside my head. Part of it felt like flying, and I wanted to do it again. I wanted to know if my soul really left my body. I wanted to know if I could make it happen myself. The school bus never took us any further than where the asphalt ended abruptly on West Drive at the edge of the Claiborne Ranch. From there, it was another half-mile of gravel and dust to get to Dunhill Drive, the dirt road we lived on. Michael and I stopped to watch the painted ponies graze in the Claiborne side pasture before we walked the rest of the way home. He hung his arms over the side of the wooden fence and told me he got a letter from his mother. He talked about her so rarely I wasn't sure whether to ask for details or not. He kept going before I had the chance. She's in New Mexico now, another commune, another stupid group of hippies. He pushed away from the fence, kicked a stone into the road. A brown lizard darted in front of us. The sun was high in the afternoon sky, and there wasn't a bit of shade on that part of West Drive. I used to want her to come back for me, he said, but I wouldn't go with her now. I wouldn't go even if she begged. The idea of Michael leaving had never occurred to me before then. I knew his mother was out there somewhere. She wasn't dead like my father. But the idea that she could show up and take Michael away, that was news, and it scared me. Michael picked up a long stick by the side of the road, treating it like a cane. He touched it to the ground before he took a step. He was 12, soon to be 13, and finally taller than me. His face was round, his body slightly plump. He started to get pimpled, and he was sensitive about it. Michael's preference would have been to sit under a sleepy oak tree eating chocolate and reading books all the time, but Eddie kept him busy with lots of chores, so he never got outrageously fat. "Do you think your mom will come back?" I asked. "No," he said. "She's not coming here." He leaned on his walking stick like an old man, and the road stretched out before us. I heard Grandpa on the phone with her a few weeks ago. His voice got real quiet, which it never does, you know. And after they were done talking, he took Kipper out for a long ride. Didn't come back until after dark. Then he stood out there in the pasture, brushing him down for hours. "She's not coming for me. She's never coming for me." That was the first time Michael and I ever had what I'd call a serious conversation. And what I remember most are how the rocks stabbed the soles of my shoes as we walked, and that hot, heavy sun beating on our backs. After Michael was done talking about his mother, I didn't feel closer to him. I didn't want him to keep talking. Instead, I started craving that sensation that had pulled me out of my body. My mind fixated on it, and I couldn't think of anything else. I knew it was something inside of me, yet another way I was different. But unlike all the other things, my static was invisible. It wasn't like not having a father, or being too good at math, or not liking girlish things. The static didn't seem like something I had to feel bad about, and I wanted it to take me away again. I wanted to fly over the trees. I wanted to surf the clouds. Thanks.